Okay, ladies and gentlemen,
Make
this
it clap.
is the podcast. You wanted to dive right in. You know, this is not the kind of podcast where we are going to be cheesing around about being...
No introductions.
No
needed.
introductions. So let's get right into it. Dealing with differences. What differences are out there in the world that you feel monumental and worth discussing? How do we create a podcast which is going to build value for our listeners and also bring value to ourselves?
Well, obviously there's countless differences that I couldn't even begin to cover, but I think mostly we know from our own experience as being two people from different countries, different religions, different ethnicities, and a lot of times I think we're so used to being in this relationship that we don't even, like, we know the differences are there, but we don't think about them in the same way, or it becomes like regular conversation. So I think we wanted to, like, I don't know, talk about these things the way we talk about them, which is like every day, I would say.
Yeah, so basically opening up the conversation to people and inviting people into the conversation, and hopefully this will entertain you, bring you clarity on some issues, or even cause confusion and even spark off more conversations.
Yeah, opening the dialogue.
Yeah, opening the dialogue.
The dialogue we have that we want to have with everyone else.
Speaking of dialogue, the word dialogue just seems so... It just takes me to a classroom immediately. Like it sounds like it's
my favorite place.
It's UN, it's kind of, you know, like United Nations, like your League of Nations and whatever. But I know you have your background with peace and justice studies and all of that. But I want the conversation this time to be more mundane. Okay, like little things that really, really matter.
Okay.
And I think maybe what's going to help our listeners is if we introduce ourselves just a little bit, let them know who the voice they are hearing is, and and
the face they're
seeing. And the
seeing.
face they're seeing, yeah.
So yeah, we're the duo Nsimbi, but we're also individual human beings. Sometimes.
Peas in a pod.
Yes.
Yes.
This P is Miriam Tamar Nsimbi, from the States, from Boston, Massachusetts, which is the East Coast. Jewish cultural background. Boston is kind of like, it's very educated, but very also conservative and uptight. So
I wouldn't know.
You do know, but I'm not. That's something I think I've always been running from. And what else about me?
You've always run away from it, being educated?
Not being educated. That I like.
Okay.
That I'm into.
Okay.
But being uptight.
I wouldn't say you're uptight.
Right. I'm always running. I don't want to be uptight, and I don't really like being with uptight people. So that's what I don't know. What else am I supposed to say about myself? Yeah,
it's usually hard. You see how hard it is when someone asks you to like talk about yourself or describe yourself?
Yeah, that's why this podcast is not about us. That's
it's
why
not about us. It's about...
I didn't want to be like reading you my CV. But
exactly.
Somebody here really insists that
yeah,
happens.
It's really important because sometimes it gives context to the conversations that we're going to be having. For example, somebody knowing that you grew up in Boston, it could be a different understanding from someone who grew up from the South, like Georgia, or the way what informs your beliefs, basically your upbringing and where you're from. So it's important to give context. And on the other side, my context is I'm an African man born and raised in Kawempe, Kampala, Uganda. Not as educated as Boston, you should say, but very educated in its African ways.
Honors.
Yes.
And whatever, government to the university.
Yeah. No, but I'm talking about the...
We did a little hair oiling this morning, just doing a little touch-up. Sorry. I know.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are trying to be...
I can't let this be for like an hour on this podcast.
We are trying to be professional out here. And for the people who are not watching this on YouTube, She's watching the oil that she bought for me, some Jamaican oil,
some castor
dripping
oil
all over my forehead, and she's trying to clean it.
Yeah, that's like, I don't want you all to think he's just sitting here sweating, but
how are we going to build a
self-care
professional?
is important.
How are we going to build a professional podcast if we are acting unprofessional right now?
So
yeah, but
I'm
I also giving background.
Man, you're from Kawempe.
Yes, and I was talking about the education that we get out there. It's not the education of you go to Tufts, you go to which universities are out west, out east. You go to New York University or whatever. The education,
Harvard.
Yeah. The education in where I grew up is kind of different. It's kind of an education which has been passed down through our parents, through their roots. It's an education basically of ancestry, an education of colonialism, an education of the surroundings of where you're growing up, the ghetto.
Education or indoctrination? Because that's also a big
it's a debate.
Big thing we're trying to figure out as grown people. When you look back at the stuff you learned, and like we look at stuff like that I learned in school versus what you learned in school, and how that's supposed to shape the way you see the world. And again, that's why we're saying indoctrination, because
depending on
it's
who,
like who wants you to the powers that be want certain people to think in certain ways or understand history or culture in certain ways.
I was saying that depending on who you ask, you might call it indoctrination. Other people might call it being saved, because indoctrination usually takes on a light of religion. To an African looking at a person who grew up in America could say you're indoctrinated into capitalism. But most of the cases, into capitalism, into the American way of thinking, you're indoctrinated basically to think that way. And also for the Africans on the other side, the Christian is indoctrinated in that faith. The Muslims are indoctrinated into their own thing, and the
Western
ones who
superiority complex. What is it? Where like people from or American. I mean, there's the American superiority complex, which is also I'm very aware of. So there's like so many layers. There's
so many layers. But like we said, we are beginning this podcast to deal with differences, and even the word indoctrination has its own, like, there are different sides to this prism, and depending on how you look at it.
Because we can't be anti-education. It's good
we
to
can't
be
be anti-education.
informed.
We can't be anti-American. We can't be anti-religion.
You can't be anti-anything except for anti-hate.
On that, we totally agree. High fives. Yes, we totally agree. There is no hate out here. Just things that we are going to try to deal away with. Actually, if it were a mission statement, I think we should say we hope to deal away with it or contribute to a conversation or start conversations and spark conversations that lead into more understanding.
More understanding, more appreciation of differences. I'm not going to say like getting rid of differences, but acknowledging them and talking about them. And I think there's we like difference. That's what makes the world go round and make it interesting and exciting.
Differences are beautiful, right?
Yeah.
I mean, look at you.
Beautiful.
And then look at you know where I'm going. But I have a question for you, Mias. Differences are beautiful. Differences is what creates all of these varieties and all of these different nuances in how things taste, how things smell, how things look, and how things are understood is what creates beauty, right? What then creates conflict? What creates the conflict?
I know that from an anthropological standpoint, so the study of humans and human nature as well.
So anthropology is the study of
people, of cultures, people, societies. And I guess maybe it's also psychology that so as humans we have to put things into category to understand.
Yes.
So if we just did categories, that's cool. There's no issue. It's the issue comes that after you put things in categories, they have to go into hierarchies. So when you start putting something on top of something else, something is better, something's worse than. That's where you start. Are you eyeing me like you didn't know this? Or you're
No,
like, yes,
I actually didn't know this. I didn't know this
Okay,
because I'm trying to break it down to. We might have stumbled on something special here. I've never had anyone break it down like that. Like,
well, that's because I'm a peace and justice studies major.
Here we go again.
Tapping
Here we
into
go
my
again. Here we go again.
edumacation.
Edumacation, yes. You're edumacated.
Yeah, I'm very educated.
So, it's when you begin ranking those things, that's where the conflict comes in, because everyone begins questioning, why am I being ranked lower than the other person or the other thing?
And once there's a ranking system, obviously anyone wants to be at the top in all categories.
Yes.
And the people with the power get to be at the top. Because it's the people making the biggest decisions about how things run. So if we were just like accepting like, you're from this place. Yeah. You dress like this.
Yes.
You wear your hair like this. Like,
yes. And it doesn't make me any better than you, or it doesn't make you better than me. It's non-category.
Right.
That's really beautiful. The way you've described it, you've really, really broken it down.
Thank you.
Because it's when you begin ranking the way you dress over the other person's dressing, and then you begin putting a label on what's more important. The person who dresses up this way is better than the other person.
That's like,
one more thing. And then you begin saying, my God is better than your God because my God is the best.
Yes.
What makes your God the best?
Yes.
You know? I don't know. Yeah, you're about to say something.
I mean, that made me think of something kind of different, but I think worth considering. Like, we also, in terms of ranking things, we have this need to like create ways to have achievement.
Yeah.
Like whether it's a promotion, awards, music countdowns, like different things, ranking everyone. Something always has to be better than the other. And I'm trying to think in what sense, what good does that do? I'm trying to think of a scenario where that actually is useful. I guess it's useful if I want to go online and research what doctor I want to see who's ranked the highest, so I get the best medical care.
Yeah.
But like I'm trying to, but overall, I'm like.
And if I was a general and I was going into war, I'm going to choose my strongest soldier, my fastest soldier. So
it's not like you can do away.
It isn't that you can do away with ranking things sometimes.
Yeah, and hierarchy. Wait. Also, what's it? Ranking versus hierarchy.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'd have to like look up
I think Einstein has this beautiful quote where he says, you can't judge the ability of a fish. You can't judge the intelligence. I'm paraphrasing. You can't judge the intelligence of a fish by its ability to climb a tree. So I think you can rank things, but as long as what was the other word you said? Hierarchy. You can rank things, but then just because you ranked one thing for a certain purpose. If you're looking for soldiers, you can rank who's the fastest and who has more resilience, and
But does that make them the better lover? Does that make them the better singer?
Exactly. So in one category, it shouldn't be a broad brush for every other category.
But I think that as humans, we tend to like, if someone's in one of the top categories, you just see them, you just think they're overall a better person. Like, say there's like, you have Jay-Z, because you love Jay-Z. He's at the top of so many things.
I love Nas.
He's one of the richest men in the world. He's one of the most successful. But I'm just saying in terms of a big name. So then you just like, people are put on a pedestal when they might actually be like total crap in other areas, or as a human being. We don't know. I
wouldn't say Jay-Z's crap in some areas.
We don't know.
But we don't know.
So I'm just saying, like, it's like if you're ranked high in one thing, you automatically get like a permission slip, or like I don't know. You're seen differently in all.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're saying, but to get away from personalities, and because we don't want to offend anybody or come off like we're I know exactly what you mean. It's when we begin playing favorites.
Yeah.
And even when the ranking does not favor that person, you begin cheating for that person because you're playing favorites. So I think we've stumbled on another very interesting topic. So now that we know that that's the cause of all conflict, it's in the ranking and how you begin putting things on a totem pole and saying okay, everybody covets the top spot.
Yes.
Everybody wants my country is
and
better
then,
than yours.
And with like social conflict,
yes,
you have the ranking system, and then inevitably things are problematic in life. Something goes wrong.
Yeah.
It's where being able to put the blame on someone on a lower level for a scapegoat. So that's what happens socially of scapegoating.
Yeah.
It could be saying, oh, people in this industry are creating the problem. It can be saying people of this ethnicity are creating the problem.
Yes.
I feel like, again, that we're being super abstract. And I think the idea is to talk more like based on our personal experience and like things we know.
We are peeling this onion and definitely peeling away all the layers.
We're gonna cry a lot.
Yeah, we got... yeah. So some stories could make you cry while we're peeling this onion. But in saying that everybody covets, let me ask, if ranking is really is important, right? Is it innate? Is it in us as human beings that's how we survive? When did this ranking, the need to rank, when did that come into play?
Well, it was originally a survival thing because, well, I'm thinking about like if you're trying to figure out, you have to be able to differentiate animal species, plant species, humans. I mean, I guess people were differentiating each other because it's like, this is my family, which is like your clan or whatever. And that's another family, and they might attack us for our resources. I mean, I don't know. When you think back to like cavemen, like why was everyone fighting instead of working as a team? That's kind of the question too. Why is that instinct to fear the other person or to see someone else as an adversary rather than a, what do you call it, teammate?
Yeah, I don't know. We might need to invite an anthropologist on this with us.
Professor up in her.
But I know from the moment we began creating tools, or even before the creation of tools, it was a thing about mating. It was a thing of which man is going to provide more for my children or provide more for his
alpha male can create more offspring, can protect the offspring, continue the human race.
Yeah. When the world was based on who has more muscles, resilience, could go hunt, gather. But then you also find that the betters in this time right now are the more brainiacs who are really running the world. Yeah, it's the time for the beta male.
Yeah, so the muscles have changed.
The muscles have changed. Now you need your brain power. Yeah.
Yes.
But. Yeah, there is a lot to dissect.
You know what I'm
here.
thinking? Like, I think if we want to like actually be more personal about this, I'm trying to think like if I imagine how I understood myself growing up or as a teen or whatever, within the context of society and how that's changed as I've been more exposed to the world. I mean, I went to a school that was primarily white, primarily Christian. I don't know. I'm thinking, like, think about it too. Like, what?
Primarily white, primarily Christian,
primarily wealthy.
Primarily wealthy. And was it by design or was it by?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, in that situation, there's the micro hierarchies or whatever in those situations of who's the most popular, who's this or that, based on all kinds of superficial, childish stuff. Who's outgoing, who's funny, who's better looking, all these different things.
Actually, I've just had a crazy thought right now. Just as you was talking about that, I thought about asking you about how you rank a person who is popular, but then a more deeper thought occurred to me. A more deeper thought occurred to me that most of the conflicts actually, besides the ranking, most of the conflicts are because our genes are trying to live here longer and adapt to this environment we find ourselves in. Because the male is always competing for the female to plant his seed, while the female is always looking for the male who's best suited to provide for the seed. Yeah,
well, now that you say
that... So then it becomes a thing of, how do I survive?
Right, and I feel
the day, the month, the tribe, the community. Yeah, so how do I make sure that my line continues?
Yeah, and I think that's also like an interesting thing because when I think about my youth, once you start becoming like socially conscious and feeling a sense of where do I belong or how do people see me is like the same time you start liking boys for me. Like, and I think that a lot of it is, do boys like me? How do I behave to be liked? And I think that's a big part of popularity socially.
Yeah, definitely.
So,
who is going to attract more females? Who is going to attract more boys?
Yeah.
And
which is like
what was the most intelligent person? The most
the intelligent
popular? No.
It was the most popular. The person who attracted the most people, boys and girls, who had the most magnetic
in your school, what did they
personality.
do? Were they the funniest?
They were probably had a good sense of humor, good looking, and sporty. I think that's how I would
ladies and
describe,
gentlemen, that would be me. Yeah.
Except
in my school. Yeah.
Oh,
Except I'm lying.
Yeah, we'll pull up some evidence later. So that's what I would say a boy would have been ranked on. What would a girl have been ranked on?
Mm-hmm. Isn't it usually like the quarterback of the high school? I'm basing this on totally on
like
movies.
Every high school movie. Yeah. And that's why the girl in the movie, we didn't have cheerleading at my school, but definitely would have been the worst cheerleader ever.
Why didn't you have cheerleading at your school?
Our school league of private schools didn't allow cheerleading. I think actually for this reason.
Yeah, it could be for that reason.
Yeah. I mean, it was a failure in terms of like cliques and bullying and all that.
Did you have sororities though, or is this
that's a university thing?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I was not into personally, but it's the same. Yeah. But it's also like subjective because I guess it's objective and subjective because a community can agree on who's popular.
Yeah. And
there's sort of like this unspoken agreement around that.
Yes.
But then like that, but that's part of growing up as you start seeing more and more social circles. It's like in university, I was in a cappella, which some people thought was really cool and some people thought was super dorky and weird.
Really Speaking of like subjective things and how even the ranking itself is flawed, because there is music that people find very interesting, which I really find depressingly boring. And I know we've walked into some people's houses or people showing us art, and they are in love with some art pieces which we don't totally get at all. And sometimes we whisper amongst ourselves and like, I don't think I would ever get that, or when we're having conversations. But such things like mean a lot to the people who bought them.
Yeah.
That if you were to tell them or give them an opportunity to rank art in the world, they would put something hideous in front of you and tell you that
hideous
this is
according to you.
Yeah, hideous to me, like a work of art to them. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
But I feel like there's like the younger years, then there's the high school years, then you get to university where I think for most people it's a much more diverse setting.
Yeah.
With people from different parts of your country, out of your country. Some people start to expand. Hopefully people expand, but others stay
don't.
in the same mindset of what
you're meant to outgrow
how society is supposed to be structured.
Yeah.
The thing is, what I think is weird when you if I look at power dynamics in the US and I see who's running the country time after time, which is usually old, rich, white Christian men, it's like those are the people that stay in the same mindset of what's popular. Like they just cling to that and they never broaden like what's the norm, who's in charge, who's like that's kind of like when I look at presidents, I see usually guys that I think would have been like on a sports team in a fraternity. Like again, we go back to the stereotype of like US movies about high school or college. It's like those guys.
They're looking for a tall president. They're looking for a president who is Christian or loves God, right?
Has hair.
Somebody who, has
like
hair.
Superficial stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah, but then again, it still goes back to the point that we made earlier that people will always, the conflict comes in, or the favoritism, or the ranking, because you want your tribe to survive. So look at the biggest composition of America. The example you brought up of presidents. You find that most of these Christian, because the Christians are the largest majority, and the nation was founded by Protestants, right? Christian.
Yes. I'm like the people fleeing
Persecution
in the UK.
WASP,
yeah, I guess.
right? Basically.
Yeah.
White Anglo-Saxon
Protestants, you're right.
Protestants,
you're right.
yeah.
See,
So
look
if-
at all
if-
he's learned from me.
Come on, man.
Well, you didn't know the word WASP.
Yeah,
Which
I
is like,
didn't know that.
I'm
Which
also
was
like, I don't know if WASPy people like the term or if it's offensive. I could, for all I know, we're offending people.
Okay, let me let the people in on something. So when I first met Miriam and we were dating a little bit,
Just a little bit.
dating a little bit. Like I had saved her in my phone as JAP, which I later came to
You
learn
didn't
that
tell
it's
me
actually,
this.
I told you that.
In your phone?
In the phone, and
What
it
did
was
you
saved
think it
as
meant?
JAP. So it was Jewish American princess,
Yes.
which you later told me was an insulting word.
Yeah.
So is the word WASP as
That's what I
insulting?
don't know. I'm not sure. I
Okay.
don't know.
It came from a good place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just thought I was a Jewish American
a Jewish American princess.
An actual
Yes,
princess.
yes. An actual princess. No,
Yeah.
come on. But yeah, dealing with differences again, you find that all these presidents that that actually make it to the White House, Christians, they love God.
Or they say they do.
Probably, yeah. Or they say they have to pretend they do, even
Yeah.
if they don't.
Family values.
Family
and
values, because
traditional
that's what's going to put
values
them in
and-
power.
Yeah.
So you find that they have to kind of pander to all of these groups that want to ensure their survival. They put the trust behind the man who's going to ensure that, who
'Cause they're the
reflects
ones
who they are, because
funding.
they are the ones funding.
Yeah.
They are the ones, like it's a thing of, again, survival. So you find other people who have other beliefs, again.
Okay.
Like
So if
so
if we look at the US, then we think of Protestants came over, committed genocide on the natives. So then they
Yes,
were
yeah.
by default the
Yes.
powerful people, and
Yeah.
then created the social norm, which is just like for generations up until now, trying to protect the social norm and the power structure.
Yeah.
If we look at
They were-
Uganda,
they were not the powerful people. They were the most aggressive people who are willing to take the war and annihilation of the people
Yeah,
to
to the
take their
most
land.
extreme. Okay.
Sometimes strength is not about, that's another way of looking at things differently. To the African, probably to the Native Americans, it was for them being kind is strength. Like being
Yes.
Mandela kind, or like Gandhi kind was strength.
at the same
and
okay.
Gandhi's
Although,
even a wrong
but
example here. Yeah.
native tribes also warred with each other, so they still had a dynamic of
Yeah.
power and control and protecting,
Yeah.
just not to the psychotic level of these Europeans that came.
Yes.
So my question is, since we can see where that power dynamic comes from, I'm wondering in Uganda, if you look historically at like who set up the norms.
Yeah.
Well, we know Baganda are the largest tribe in terms
In
of
Uganda,
people,
yeah.
population. Is that, but it's ruled more recently by Ryankolis over the last, so I'm just thinking about I'm trying to see how that works where you're from.
Before we get to where I'm from, which is another
Where
very
I'm
complicated, where I'm from. Now, I mean, Kampala UG representing. But before we get to there, you find that when the white Protestants first came over to the US, it was the thing of, we're fleeing religious persecution,
Yes.
but we're still going to show you that our God is better than your
Yeah.
God. So if you believe in being a free spirit and being in harmony with the trees, that's not good enough. Our God has to prevail all over.
Yeah, so it was
We're going to scalp
it's
your
a
heads
very
basically and take
like
your
the
land
most hypocritical
because we don't
story.
believe in the same God. It's a very
I can't understand it.
And you find that the people who usually justify violence do it in the name of naming themselves the good guys and calling the other people bad in order for them to take power
this
from
is
them.
the higher. So again,
yeah.
if you're invading a country
Yeah.
or a territory, you have to put yourself at the top of this ranking. What makes you better? Why are you powerful? Why are you in charge? Why should you dominate?
Yeah.
So that's where you get like colonization and like crazy like white man's burden theories, and I'm sure there's other theories like that too, where because white man's burden was related to Christianity, right?
I don't know what man's burden is. I'm just making it. I'm on the context of what we are talking about. I'm thinking it's this need to be the savior, to take care of.
It was the burden on white colonial people to save. I feel like this was all over the world. People of color, basically, from being savage and having savage cultural ways instead of seeing Jesus. And so it's connected. I mean,
the people who used to cut off their enemies' heads and drink beer out of their skulls were calling everybody savage.
Yes, because that's proper, prim and proper behavior.
Exactly. So we are arriving at so many things. You asked me about how our society is set up in Uganda.
Yeah, in terms of
I don't remember what
I was asking. Like, where do you see the foundation of creating what's popular or what's the norm?
Yeah.
What are those themes? Like, we were able to identify that in the States. What are those themes, and who created that narrative? Are those still the people in power? Like, in the US, we see that the narrative since being founded is basically the same.
What narrative?
Of what's popular, of what's the norm, of who's at the top of the hierarchy.
Who's on top of the hierarchy? So I think with most societies in Africa of Buganda, it was the size of your kingdom, basically, and how many people are you ruling over. So
back to procreating. Then.
Back to procreating.
So it's like, you better be making us some babies.
Better be making us some babies, some fast soldiers, some food to feed the tribe, some gold, some metal. So you find that Buganda broke away from a bigger kingdom, which was called the Bunyoro Kingdom.
Okay.
And the Bunyoro Kingdom basically was falling apart because they didn't have enough soldiers to take care of their very vast empire. So Buganda comes out of about 21 families that decided we are going to break away and head east to create our own land. So those 21 families coming together, Okuganda means to come together, basically. So it became Buganda because they came together. Buganda. So Okuganda, they came together and that was Buganda.
Okuganda.
So they moved away from Bunyoro and moved to where the tribe settled right now, which is like around a very big lake. The second biggest lake they used to call Nalubale.
So where was the other region?
The other region was just west, Bunyoro, basically. It was a huge kingdom, which was
more by the mountains.
It was a huge, yes, from the mountains going all the way to Rwanda. It was a huge
so down,
empire that was broken down to now smaller kingdoms.
Okay.
So the Baganda leave Bunyoro and they wanted to find farming land, more freedom, and da-da-da-da-da. So when they arrive in Buganda, they find another 12 families. And those 12 families were being ruled by a chief, let's say. And it was called Bemba Musota.
Okay.
Which basically means snake.
Do you know roughly when this was?
I totally have no idea. I have no idea. But it's something for our viewers and listeners to look
maybe
into.
We'll add it to like
the beautiful story here is that they just moved on gathering numbers. So again, Nebaganda, they came together with the tribes that the small kingdom they found over there and began procreating. So the other king needed these numbers breaking away from Bunyoro, and the people breaking away from Bunyoro also needed a place which already had a system.
When I think of a tribe, or the way I see it now or understand it, it's like we think of them as like different ethnic lines of people that are related. So this almost sounds like anyone who was within a certain distance could be included, but I'm trying to understand. So this is
the thing which makes it was genius in the design of Buganda. So for them, the numbers were really important. So if you look at the map of Uganda right now, they are all around the places where they could fish, the places where they could farm and easily basically protect themselves. So they are west of the Nile River, protected by another lake from the north. So that means no enemies from the north. And wherever they put their forces was to safeguard against whoever was coming from the west. So for them, the numbers were really important, but what they kept as the non-contaminated line, contaminated in quotes. The line that does not mix is the line of the royal.
Okay.
That does not. So it's like Rome in a way that if you come to a kingdom and begin behaving like you have the same sets of values with the people of the kingdom.
Wait, that's actually really interesting.
You're Baganda.
Wait. Okay.
Yeah.
So
if
totally
we have a
changes-
child, that child becomes a Muganda.
But they're not.
But they can never
Baganda
become
line.
king. But they can never become king. Yeah.
But I'm trying to. So that sounds so much more like, I think the way I've understood, and I think a lot of people understand tribes, particularly African tribes, is that it is purely ethnic, and it's like a family that expanded.
Yeah.
But this sounds so much more like the way people understand nations, which is people of a rough geographic area living together under the same
sets of values,
rules, and and there's still certain criteria for what allows you to be powerful. Yeah. But it's like,
it was actually based on merit to a certain extent.
But now
though even among the Baganda, you still had these were the first generation Baganda. That means that these were the Baganda who were found in the region. So they have a name called Kasangwao. And then they have the Baganda of Njocho. And then they have another category of Baganda, which is...
But how does this explain like different physical differences between different regions? Or
what do you mean physical differences?
Certain parts of the country or certain tribes have different features.
Oh, yeah. I was talking about...
How does that happen then? Because this sounds like there's quite a bit of mixing of just people.
Yes. There's quite a bit of mixing of the people.
But then it's like... And I can understand the same way with a nation. And you would have a language that is like the language everyone agrees to speak for understanding. You might have a most popular religion because that's how people organize and connect. But but I don't. So
for Buganda, again, explaining the power dynamic in that region and before it became a country, you had the biggest tribe as the Baganda, the second biggest tribe being the Banyankore. And then you have the Cholis in the north and that whole Luo. The ethnic group. And so the Baganda had the power of numbers. Their protection was in the numbers and their protection was in their values and constitution. Call it a constitution per se. And they found a way of also governing this very large tribe using councilmen who are called Abami. So the Abami became like the governor, basically. Yes, the governor, so and so, and then the parliament, and then you obey the king's orders. So the Mwami was based on merit. You could rise because you were working so hard. People put the trust in you, and the king chose you to be his Mwami. Now, the Mwami did not have to be a Mwami,
husband, too.
Basically. But before, Omwami was like a landlord and you're taking care of a certain
patriarchal term.
Yeah. It's a very patriarchal term, but also...
Yeah, but that's the history of the term.
Yeah, okay. But in the paradigm dynamic of that, Buganda is the only tribe in that region which is set up like that. So it became powerful because it's set up like that. Other things were about, marriage-based.
I said merit. Are you saying marriage? But so both marriage and merit,
basically.
But the Mwamis are not marriage; they're merit-based.
They are merit. They're merit-based. So, and the king took on the tribe of the mother because that's where they could trace until they're very old. They're very fast. But in that region, because the Baganda were the only tribe was set up like that, they amassed so much power in taking over all the trade routes and levying taxes, in being able to put trading centers in other regions, in having their language be the most widely spoken in the region. So when the colonialists came, the Baganda knew they wouldn't fight the colonialists. So they allied with the colonialists and made Uganda a protectorate.
Okay. Before we get there, I'm still caught up on this because this is new information for me.
Yes.
If you're sort of like taking in people within a territory that's expanding and saying,
Yes.
yeah, you can be part of us. This is what we do. Like, welcome to this nation.
Yes.
This tribal nation. How or why were, like, when I think of like Luo and Baganda, why did that line stay? Like, why didn't it get more mixed historically? Was it a geographic thing? Like there was space and like, oh, these families are far away, so they're going to stick to those other families.
Yes.
So
because the Luo take pride in, I'm going to marry a Luo. But a Muganda man could take pride in marrying a person from another tribe and having those kids be Baganda.
And expanding the tribe.
While the Luo man is going to be like, I must marry another Luo person.
Right, which is what we, as Jewish people,
and they are Baganda who also believe they have to marry another Muganda woman. But then again, the definition of the Muganda keeps on, expanding.
So then I'm wondering, I don't think either of us can answer this. I'm wondering for the Luo then, it's the same thing I can ask for Jewish people. My own culture is like, when we deal with an issue of numbers and not having enough numbers and having to like procreate and it's like, so then I see the method of the Baganda people, but it's
having more kids because the Baganda when they have kids,
is that
more
like the Luo? Like I'm wondering
13,
what they
30.
Yeah, but I'm thinking how they culturally, like what the system is for being powerful, because every community wants to be powerful. So I wonder if it's a numbers game and if that works as effectively.
Usually it's always been a numbers game. Think about it. It's always been a numbers game. If I can marry, if it's a polygamous setup like Buganda had,
but it's not always,
and I can marry 8 women.
Yeah, but it's not always a numbers game, because I'm looking at Jewish people, which Orthodox are the Jews that are the most religious. It's like their goal is to have as many kids as possible.
Is it polygamous though?
No. It's not polygamous, but you have to have as many children as possible that your body will allow. But if it was really
that
about
your body can allow,
like you're like actually like there's all these, like you can't go on birth control, you can't, like there's all these like really
that's crazy
major,
but anyway that's
what they
it's
see
like
it as
African
like
too.
They see it as like, well, God, whatever God wants you to, how many children God wants you to have is what you need to have. Don't get in the way of that plan. What was I saying? I was thinking about, but then if for Jews, if it was about numbers, then like Jews are really difficult with interfaith, with what's it called, with conversion, like all that. So it's like we almost discourage the like any mixing. So it's like the opposite of Baganda. Then I'm like, then what would be the theory of, or like what would be, I think culturally we've always said, being powerful is maintaining a strong cultural identity, even if we're smaller in numbers. Which has clearly worked in some ways as well.
It has worked in some ways, and
I was thinking like this,
and
number,
sometimes it kills you off, because you're telling me about how sometimes you have all of this inbreeding, and sometimes the diseases become hereditary, and you don't strengthen your, I don't know.
And there's a numbers issue now, because so many people in this global society are becoming intermarried or losing less of an interest in being Jewish or holding a strong Jewish identity.
Did we say intermarried or marrying? If you're marrying from it's not intermarriage. It's not. But were you not telling me there's a lot more incest going on in the tribe? No,
not incest.
It wasn't you. It wasn't your tribe. Okay.
No, not incest, but
when you're marrying from the same,
you have to be beyond a second cousin. I think maybe a third or fourth, because I don't know, which is like very distant.
See, but so the Banyankole marry their cousins too,
like a fourth cousin, not like, immediate cousin.
Like fourth cousin.
But anyways, if the group is small and you're marrying,
well, the Baganda can't marry their cousins. You actually can't.
Like if you can trace any bloodline related, you can't marry.
No, actually, the moment you join the tribe or whatever, however you join the tribe, that man has a clan. So you can't cross a clan line. Like I can't marry another person.
And a clan goes back like,
I can't marry.
10 generations, 20 generations.
More than 10 or 20.
So your clan line. So that
because there's a chance that if I were to sleep with somebody from Lugave, there's a chance we are related. So it has to be from another clan.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I would say Jews can marry within their theoretical clan, which is also a numbers thing because, like, your numbers aren't that high, especially when you look that, like, our people are spread out across the globe. So it's like people within your community.
Is high a Jewish word? High. Sounds Jewish, right? High.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is interesting. This is amazing. But look at how the power of numbers again plays and to the advantage of the Romans. Whoever joined their city and had a set of values, which was behave like a Roman, even if you weren't patrician, or you could still fight for the kingdom, rise in the ranks. US is the same thing. It's what they actually try to sell to everybody. It's the American dream. You can come over here, become American, and
but there's everywhere in the world, especially now, like in recent times, has been this issue about being I'm a pure American, or I'm a real American, or I'm a pure this or that. When it's like, we know as far back, like, there's literally no such thing as a pure anything.
There's no such thing as a pure anything anyway.
But there's a fantasy about it, and there's like this need socially.
Their ideas
to have that, to attempt to adhere to that, or to attempt to have that be the top of the hierarchy. Like who is the most pure. Who is the most German? Who is the most American? Who is the most Buganda?
The most pure, exactly. That's
although
also debate.
Although it's sounding like maybe your leaders are pure if they literally couldn't leave the family line.
Yeah.
But how come they're not inbred?
The king has to be.
Wait. How come they're not having that?
They have to take the mother's. They have to take the mother's clan.
So they are mixing. They're mixing, but just not the father's bloodline.
All I know is that the king doesn't have a clan. He has to marry from. He takes on the clan of his mother.
Okay.
And he has to marry somebody who is so they're inbreed too.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
but they don't have medical issues, or you don't know. It's private.
I wouldn't know, but probably they do. Like
you would think they'd be going extinct at some point because it's such a small group, and that's like that's actually like severe
because
inbreeding.
a king has to marry somebody who is royal as well. So that's why it's some kind
royal
of
the same tribe.
Yes, royal of the same tribe.
Yeah,
because how else would the person be a Uganda?
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, okay. There's some bit of research to be done here. I know there's going to be so many Uganda in our comments, you know.
Well, no. So
but this is what the podcast is for, to start those conversations and dig deeper, learn.
Yeah, and I just want to add to that because it's not when we talk about the Jewish hereditary issues, medical issues. So now, like, you can do it before you get married or after, but like, almost every Jewish couple before they're about to have babies. I mean, a lot of people just do this now in modern times, but Jews, there's certain diseases that a Jew and a Jew together are predispositioned for their offspring. So we have blood tests we have to take that like see if you're going to pass down these diseases.
Yes. I think we've done this test, right?
Yeah.
We've done this test, and then I discovered I also have.
It was like we were like, ooh, who has more?
We were like, ooh, who has more diseases?
Guess who?
Guess who had more diseases?
Shall we go through that on another episode?
Yeah, we should go through that on another episode of the podcast. But I'm enjoying this. Are you enjoying this?
Yeah.
We should do this more often.
I think so.
There's so many things to discover, so many things to learn.
I know we want to talk about like so many things, like being an interracial couple, my experience in Uganda as a white woman, your experience in the States as an African man. Like there's
the microphone. Yeah,
is not on my mouth.
Yes,
I think it's picking up my voice. It might be going in and out. Sorry,
it's better there.
We'll find out if this first one is all like crazy with the video and audio, and we'll improve.
Another crazy thought came to me again.
Yeah.
So you look at how big China is.
Yeah.
And the Chinese don't really like intermarry like that, do they?
Between their ethnic groups?
They're basically, let's say, race in quotes, because race is a construct again.
Ethnic groups.
Yeah, ethnic group. Yeah.
I I don't know, but again, I couldn't tell you because again, also the numbers are so large. I don't know
the
what
Chinese
they're
doing a great job at reproducing. Like you guys are doing a great job. The Indians are doing a great job, and so are Africans. We're catching up to you guys. But I was thinking about like Asia and thinking about Africa and how those two relate, and even the Baganda we've been talking about. So even with the Baganda, even as their numbers grew, the purity thing came in, where the ones who believed they are pure felt a certain kind of superiority over whoever came from whatever side. Or you're the guys who work in our farms, you're not as, it became a classism.
Yes,
a class thing.
Yeah. So with Jewish people, some people say, so it's Judaism is passed down through the mother.
Yeah.
Everyone agrees that, but then it's like, are you a full Jew? Like, is your dad also Jewish, or is one of your parents converted? Is like, there's all these different, and everyone has a different opinion on.
You have a Jew off?
Yeah.
Like, are both of your parents Jewish? Are both of your parents
grandparents? Are all your how many of your great grandparents? How many? Yeah. So, I mean, we could.
Yeah, but Baganda do that too. Baganda do that too. They begin looking at. It's very funny because my tribe has some of the biggest noses you'll ever see, like biggest nostrils.
So does mine. In different directions.
No, different directions though. Yours is a little bit. In most cases, let's not generalize, but in most cases, ours have like very wide nostrils.
Yes.
Like they almost exposed like this.
Ours are more angular or
in almost.
Yours has width.
I've seen some of my tribesmen whose noses look like double barrels. They're like the in front of a double barrel gun. Yeah, something like that. So, Baganda sometimes used to tell what other Baganda looked like by how their nose looked.
But that's why I'm confused. Okay, I get it if you're saying the pure.
Yeah.
Because when you talk about, again, the history was like all these different people coming together. So I'm like, how is there an aesthetic when there's that much blending?
That's the thing. Some of them would claim to know. Like
when you get a little bit of that.
Yeah, you can never like really look at a person. Okay, there are some features where you're like, oh, definitely this person. Are you like, you could ask probably because the person has some of those features. But it's very, you can never tell. You can never like really tell.
And that's why it's like, look at even how different siblings can look in a family.
Yeah.
It's like,
you
can, if you want to see something, you can see something, I also think.
Yeah, in my family, most of the people look like my dad and I look like my mom.
Yeah, but me and my sibs, when I also like I have a brother and a sister, and they're both married and both have kids, and I look at their kids and you would never know these kids are cousins. Same with myself and my cousins. So it's like, that's where it's like the range of whatever idea
so somebody
have.
Looking at a human being, a cocktail of a human being and saying, I can tell you, it's really hard. It's really hard. And the more we go into future generations
it's
mixing.
not hard for people to say what they think. It's hard for anything to be based on
to be
any,
sure.
No, it's hard for it to be based on any facts. Like,
say that again.
I can look at someone and make an assessment or a judgment based on what I've like made a snap judgment on of what I think or where I categorize them. But when we look at history and even within our own families, it's like those things are really based on like your subjective need to put someone in that category. You want them.
You want them to belong to a certain category. I grew up thinking Mariah Carey was a white woman, like the whole entire time. I thought Mariah Carey was a white woman. And I thought
she was black, and I didn't know she was mixed.
Yes. So
I also didn't know Alicia Keys was mixed for years.
I also didn't know Alicia Keys was mixed. I didn't know Lenny Kravitz was mixed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Although isn't the point that we're now trying to make is that everyone is mixed? Like
the point we're trying to make here is that everybody is mixed, and we are getting more and more mixed. And with time, those lines will get even blurrier and blurrier and blurrier. There's a new tribe of people that's being formed. So the loyalties to tribe might take on another shape. They won't die.
You know
but
what?
The tribes are now
Okay.
becoming classes. The tribes are becoming countries.
Yeah, and I was thinking this
Yeah.
relates back to what you were saying earlier, that
Yeah.
now the muscle power is the brain power.
Yes.
So I'll be curious to see in the coming years how that translates for like social hierarchy, like whether that, because brain power is objective, that brains can be in anyone from any background.
Mm-hmm.
So I
So
don't
it's a
even
good
really
thing
know
that
what I'm
the
trying to
brains-
say. Do you get what I'm
it's a-
trying to say?
I think, let me see if I get you. So it's a good thing that, because intelligence is found in all the races of the world.
Yes.
Races again in quotes. Races in
Yes.
quotes because, again, race is a
Found,
construct.
yes, it doesn't exist.
It
It's
doesn't
found
exist.
in people from across geographic boundaries.
Yes. So as much as we had these people trying to falsify science and have all these false tests of phrenology and
Yeah, so is
saying
power gonna
white
be-
people are more intelligent than people from other races, it's all been proven to be false. So,
So is
we
power
find
going to be
intelligence-
purely on intelligence? Except the intelligent people are being capitalists. So I don't know. It's all
No,
a shit
but
show.
what's power? Power is money, right? Most of the
Probably
time
because power is control, and usually control comes from money.
Comes
I
from
think.
money. Yeah.
But we're saying that the wealthiest people now are the most intelligent people. But they're not using their intelligence. to
those
go-
are the tech
I don't.
people.
You know,
We're not-
now I feel like I can't even.
Yeah.
I'm so confused at where we're.
Yeah.
I don't know what was I trying to like.
There's so many
The
conversations
question
that
is, how
all-
will hierarchies change now that the
Yeah.
muscle has changed? I guess.
will hierarchies change now that the muscle has changed? Have our prejudices changed with the muscles?
Not yet,
because
but-
now looking at how the brain is running the world, where the brainiacs are the ones running the world.
Yes.
Even that can be corrupted because it has a loyalty to a certain race, color. So even if the
Yes.
technology is supposed to level the ground with all these tech billionaires and all these people with all these very smart inventions, if their prejudices are not dealt away with, right, they're still going to create this technology and still shift the power dynamic to whatever race or Christian or whatever, wherever their loyalties lie is where they're going to shift that power to.
Yeah, I see what you're saying.
So we still have a long way to go. I'm
Yeah.
waiting to see what we come up with in the comments. This is our very, very first episode. I know even through having a 30-minute discussion that we are tapping into so many other conversations that other people would write a thesis on, or several books have been written on. And we are waiting to see what you have to say in the comments and what we can debate on.
Yeah,
But
and we'd love suggestions for different topics.
topics, yes.
Yeah, having to do with diversity, culture.
Yeah, dealing with differences, basically.
Yeah. So looking forward to connecting and looking forward to the next conversation.
The next conversation is going to be very interesting. We have so much
I'm pinching him under the
unveil.
table, and that's like the stop talking. We have this thing we do that doesn't work.
Yeah.
And then after, when the cameras are off or we're
Yes.
off an interview or something, we're like, "Didn't you feel me pinching you?" So
Like
pinch,
I felt you pinching me,
pinch,
but I had a very, very
the episode
important.
is over.
I had a very, very important point to make,
Okay,
and
make
that's
your
to
final
thank
point.
everybody
yeah.
for listening to us on this podcast. It's our very first. It's a very enjoyable ride. You're here on the very first one, so the rocket is just launching into another sphere where we hope to unveil so many worlds through conversations. We're going to cross dimensions and travel with each other, and this is going to be an enjoyable journey, hopefully. My name is GNL Zamba with,
I'm Miriam Tamar
and together we are
in Nsimbi.
NSIMBI. Peace.